I'm going to blow up pretty much everything that's been said thus far. Pretty much everything that's been said thus far has been arguing about the movies, which is what most people are mostly aware of with Batman today. I happen to have come from an earlier time, so I'm going to talk about the comics and what it was that Batman was before he became the movie. The guy in the movies is probably guilty of pretty much everything that everybody has talked about. But Batman himself is a fictional character, first of all. And exists in a fictional world. So a lot of these concerns about Northern Ireland and police brutality and arson and so forth, not necessarily relevant to his situation. Batman, for those of you who don't know, was walking along with his parents when he was about 9 years old in Gotham City, and his parents were killed by a street criminal. And he decided to swear that he would spend the rest of his life warring on criminals. Now, I've in some of the stuff I've written, I've examined the idea of making vows when you're 9 years old that are going to run your life forever. But still, his motives are pure. The whole idea that he wants to be exceptional, that he wants to be outside the law, that he wants to do any of this sort of stuff, I don't think really applies. He wants the war on criminals. You can argue whether that's a good or bad idea, but it's not a megalomaniacal idea. We also know, from seeing him in the comics at least, that he does approach it from the idea of doing it the best way he can for the best reasons he can. The difference I thought about in coming over here was, if there was somebody running around, first of all, if there were a number of supervillains, serial killers running around Dublin, and somebody else dressed up in a vaguely scary costume and decided to run around Dublin doing something about it, that would make everybody a little nervous. But we know why he's doing this. We know his motivations, Batman's motivations. He wants to be the best hero he can be. Again, I'm talking about the comic book. I'm not dealing with the movies here. He wants to do everything he can in order to keep the city safe. He doesn't kill, which in some cases looks silly to me, if I will return to the movie for a second. When you've lost an incredible fight to Bane, had your back broken, been thrown in a prison, get out, re-encounter the guy when he's taken over all of the city with a vast army of thugs, and the first thing you do is jump on him and start punching him, you might want to escalate a little bit at that point. But Batman doesn't do that. He just fights the guy and manages to win this time with a broken back. You can tell this is not my first job as a debater. The other thing that he does do is, when he goes out to do what he does, to be the best hero that he can be, he does not skulk in the darkness. He doesn't try to hide what he does. He creates an identity. He has to create an identity, because if he did it as Bruce Wayne, he would go to jail probably. But in any event, he puts himself out there as somebody that you can find, somebody that you know what this person is. It's not just a guy hiding in the shadows, killing people or not killing people, and then escaping into the night. The other thing I wanted to get to, beyond this, is that he's an American. As possibly the only American in this room, let me explain a little bit about that. Americans, for better or for worse, and these days I think it's usually for worse, have always had somebody to fight. First they fought the British, then they fought themselves in the Civil War, then they fought the Indians, then they fought the Spanish, then they hung back a little bit, but then they fought the Germans, and from then on it's been pretty continuous. There's something about the American culture that likes that. When we were fighting the Indians, there were Wild West stories. There was a big deal, sort of Penny Dreadful. Then in the 20s, we got the Private Eyes, who were men on their own. In the 30s, we got the beginning of superheroes, the Shadow, the Spider, Doc Savage. And in the 40s, we got into comics. There's a thing about the American spirit that says, I'm sort of recreating the world in my own image. And beginning, that was the way it was. It's become part of the culture now. But it's not as horrific from an American standpoint, if I may say, that it seems to be for some of the speakers, that this guy decided he would just go out, that fast, that he would just go out and do something on his own in order to improve society. And I come back to that that's what he's trying to do. They're all the things, pretty much all the things that have been mentioned that are terrible, terrible, terrible things that he did are in the movies. And Batman has, as has been said, has undergone a number of transformations over the time. People, every age gets the Batman that it deserves. But the origin, the motivation, and so forth stays the same. We're in a darker age now. The movies are darker. They have to be summer blockbusters. They have to blow stuff up. And all that stuff comes into play. But the character himself started out this only undo crime, manages to do it without killing anybody, and doesn't aggrandize himself because of it in the original form. So I would say nothing he's done rises to the level of being honest. Thank you.